Yeah, you gotta have it. Baruch Hashem.
Exactly. So
can you hear down there? Hello. We'll find out later.
Yeah, we'll find out. Anyhow, so special night, the luminaries, they didn't say anything, and then he didn't say Tafnun. So they also had in mind, what is he doing? Why is he not saying Tafnun? And after davening, he said, we all now sit together for Sudas Mitzvah. We're sitting to eat a mitzvah meal, so to speak. And in the Sudas Mitzvah, he told them it was Wednesday, and he said that today Hashem gives you a mission. If you didn't do it, so the neshama had to come back. It's a great tzar, really painful for the neshama to come down. But sometimes the neshamas come down. The neshama of the Alter Rebbe was a new neshama that was never here before. And its mission was to illumine the world in two aspects. In the revealed aspect of Torah, which Alter Rebbe wrote the Shulchan Aruch, book of Jewish law, and he wrote Tanya and Hasidut. So he revealed two aspects of Torah, and that's why his name is Shnei Or, two lights. That's what Shnei Or means, two lights. So this is just a tribute to Chayelu. The Baal Shem Tov already foresaw the neshama of Alter Rebbe coming down to the world. The story goes that he really gave instructions to his parents, how they need to behave with him, how they should raise them, and his opshurin was done by the Baal Shem Tov. He cut his hair, and he asked him, who is it? The Baal Shem Tov said that his neshama was not mine. I'm not in charge of it, and my student, my disciple, the Mezritcher Maggid, was the one to actually teach the Balatanya, the Alter Rebbe. But indirect, obviously, the Mezritcher Maggid was taught the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. But the Balatanya was never taught directly by the Baal Shem Tov. He was taught by his disciple, the Mezritcher Maggid. And he said, that's not my neshama. But when the Baal Shem Tov met the Balatanya, was 3 years old, they asked him, who is it? The Balatanya asked, who is it? Who is this man that cut my hair? So the parents said it's Zayde. Zayde means it's the grandfather. They didn't say. So since then he related to him as the Zayde, as my grandfather. Even though it was not his biological grandfather, but he related to him as my grandfather. So we see Baal Shem Tov taught the Mezritcher Maggid. Mezritcher Maggid taught the Balatanya, and then obviously had a lot of students. And from there, from Mezritcher Maggid, you had different kinds of dynasties: the Vizhnitz, the Gur, the Breslev, all different kinds of dynasties. One of them is the Chabad. But as the prophecy of the Baal Shem Tov, when he was davening, he said the new neshama came down to the world.
How did he know it was the new neshama?
Baal Shem Tov can tell. Yeah, in his level is actually a story that the Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov asked him once, we want to see Eliyahu Navi. We want to see Elijah the prophet. They want to see him. So he said, come with me on Friday afternoon. Friday afternoon, Baal Shem Tov used to daven mincha early. Daven mincha early, let's say by 2 o'clock. 2:30.
Like lunch.
In Israel. It's perfect.
In Israel they do it. You're supposed to.
It's
Perfect early in the day. Close your office, close the business.
Instead of davening a mincha at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, daven at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He used to daven early, except Shabbos early. And he gave great importance to the mincha davening, because he said this is like the closing argument of the whole week of davening. This is the last davening of that week. So Friday afternoon is the last davening of the week. And so the Talmidim, his disciples said to him, we want to see Eliyahu Navi. He told them, come with me. They went to the usual procedure, the usual way that he would go. He would go to a lake, would toivel, he would immerse himself, and then afterwards they would daven mincha and would come home. What did you want to ask?
Why did the Baal Shem Tov choose to daven early in the afternoon? Because like most of his followers were like the less wealthy Jews, right? So like they were probably working at that time, no? Or
not necessarily. It could be that they, first of all, the Shulchan, it says in Shulchan Aruch that if you work on Friday afternoon, after midday, you're not going to see a blessing in that business that you do. So the best thing is to prepare for Shabbos. Once it's already midday, 1, 2, 3 o'clock, it's time to go home, it's time to prepare for Shabbos. And all the great tzaddikim used to behave that way. They used to conduct themselves in that fashion. There's nowhere where it says that you need to work till the last minute and right before Shabbos usher the Shabbat, right? You need a few hours before Shabbat to prepare. So it was a custom not only by the Baal Shem Tov. He accepted Shabbos a little earlier. With the Mincha, you could daven Mincha at 1:30, 2 o'clock. You daven Mincha and just go about your day.
It's very,
A lot of
very
communities,
common.
it's common. A lot of
In
communities
the
they
offices,
daven Mincha.
buildings.
Over here, they daven Mincha Ma'ariv together because they're not sure if people will come to shul 3 times a day. So they try to put them together. But in full communities, you'll see a lot of they daven Mincha at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they daven Ma'ariv at 7, 8, or whatever, the Shkia time. Anyhow, so the Talmidim of Baal Shem said, want to see Eliyahu Navi. And this is connected to the question that you said, how does he know the Nun Neshama? So, as they were going, the Baal Shem Tov had a pipe, it's a smoke.
He had his own special pipe. Yeah.
So he needed fire. He didn't have fire. No one had a fire with him. No one had a lighter. They didn't have fire.
Right.
He needed someone else to smoking that they could give him.
Sure enough.
But his disciple didn't have. So the guy on a horse, passing by, looked like a nobleman, a Polish guy, and they went to him, and they said, do you have a, he said, yeah, sure, and he gave the Baal Shem Tov the fire. And Baal Shem started a conversation with him. So the students were there, just listening to the conversation, and asking him about the harvest. They felt like he was speaking about agricultural things.
Right.
This harvest, how it's going to be this year, that year. They had a whole conversation with him. And then he went back with his disciples, and they went about Tevel, did the Mincha, and walked back. And they said to Baal Shem, 1 second, you told us that you're going to show us Eliyahu Navi. But 1 second, you didn't see him? I spoke to him the whole time. He said, no, you're speaking about the harvest, you're speaking about the crop of this year, that year. So he said, yeah, that was Eliyahu Navi. I spoke to him about the crop. I meant to ask him what neshamas are going to come down to this world. There's a special neshamas that are coming down to this world this season, this year. So which neshamas are going to come down? So the Baal Shem was involved with it. His job is to bring light to the world, and wants to make sure that there are the right people
what?
bring.
We didn't know. We would have said.
They were right there, but
They didn't know. They were oblivious to it. Right. It was right in front of them.
and so made the schus of this great tzaddikim, Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, being an ambassador of goodness and kindness for Am Yisrael, for the Jewish people, for the world. They have only good things. We say the year should end with its curses and it should start with its blessings. So we should have a great start and a much better year this coming year, and it should start already now to see how we're getting into a new and better future. So let's look at 54, this overview of Epistle 15. We're holding Igeret HaKodesh. Since our souls originate from the divine and mirror it, our souls are coming from divine and they mirror the divine, we can extrapolate from our own soul structure a minuscule perception of the divine structure. Meaning, if I would look deep into my soul, I can somewhat get an idea of what's happening up there. Right? That's what he means. You can get a minuscule perception. You get a somewhat idea, understanding. If you look at your own nefesh, your own soul, you get some understanding of how it's happening upstairs. Divine structure, meaning how it's being set up in the higher world. Nonetheless, despite the parallels, the similarities, they are also incomparably distant. They are also incomparably distant from one another. An explanation of the various characteristics of the two souls. We're going to speak about the two souls. Let's go straight into it. Tanya Lehov in Moshe Melitzo. Divrei Chacham v'chidoso b'inyan hasfiros, to understand the allegory and metaphor, the words of the wise and their riddles with respect to the Sefirot. When we say Sefirot, we mean the Chochmah, the Bina, wisdom, understanding, knowledge, Chesed, kindness, severity, splendor, Hod, Yesod, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus. Right? We have Chabad, Chagat, Nehi. Chabad is intellectual faculties, and Chagat Nehi is the emotional faculties, the emotive attributes, and then you have Malchus, sovereignty. Right? Mudas is Ba'oretz Mipikdosha Mishmosameid, and it is known throughout the land from the mouth of heavenly saints. May their souls rest in Eden. We're trying to understand the statement of Job, who said, "For my flesh I can see godliness." What do you mean you look at your flesh and you see godliness? So Eov said that statement. I look at my flesh and I can see godliness. What did he meant by it? He said, I can somewhat understand, like we said before, minuscule perception. I can understand a little bit about godliness through really looking at my flesh. Like back in the day, science did not work well with faith. They say science, we believe in fact. Faith, we believe in things that we can't prove. Today, the more the advanced the science is, the more they say it has to be that someone is running the show. Maybe they're calling it a different name, but there's a mashgiach, there's like the Rambam is like someone that handles the show. So even like now, as there's explosion of technology and science, they get to the understanding there's got to be something. There's got to be someone who handles this whole thing, who runs the show. So over here, Eov is telling us that we have somewhat a capability of understanding godliness through our flesh, through our own nefesh, also. This correspondence between the soul and its creator accords with the teaching of our sages of best memory on the verse, "Give praise, my soul, to God." Just as the Holy One, blessed be He, permeates the world, so does the soul permeates the body. Hashem permeates the world. Your soul permeates your body. Every part of your body has a soul in it.
It's in the blood, right?
Yeah. Adam hu nefesh. It says the blood is the soul. So it says, since the sages go on to enumerate other similarities between the soul and God, it is clear that from the soul we are able to catch a glimpse of things as they exist above. But how indeed can we possibly compare the soul to God? Say, through the soul I can understand godliness. How can you compare the two? How can we compare the neshama, the soul, to Hashem? The Alter Rebbe therefore goes on to quote the Zohar. The soul derives from the innermost aspect of godliness, sharing characteristics with the supernal Sefirot and with divinity itself. We are therefore able to understand godliness through analogy of the soul. This correspondence likewise accords with the teaching of the Zohar on the verse, "And he blew into his nostrils a soul of life." Man de nofach mitoiche nofach. He who blows from within him, from his inwardness and his innermost being. Va'afilu nefesh da'asiyah ibom mizivuk zeram pinugad asiyah. For even nefesh, the soul of the lowest grade of asiyah, right? We have the world of emanation, the world of creation, formation, and action. So the highest world is Atzilus, the world of emanation. The lowest world is the world of action. Within each world you have 10 levels. You have all the way, like we said, from Chokhmah, from wisdom, all the way to Malchus, to sovereignty. Wisdom to sovereignty. It says, even if the neshama was created from the lowest world and the lowest level, which is Malchus of Asiyah, of action. Some neshamas are coming from a high place, some neshamas are coming from a low place. Depends who your parents were, what they thought about
Oh boy.
at certain times, and so on and so forth.
Can we say Leilu Nishmat, Rabbi?
Leilu Nishmat
Shania Basli.
Shania Bat Lipman.
Baruch.
Shomer Shalem Laliyah. V'al pi ma'im azab v'ipach man de novim v'afilu nefesh asar, even the lowest nefesh, the lowest soul, he bo mizivuk ze'am b'mukvah d'asiyah, which comes from through the union of Zerampi, which is the lowest levels, the emotive attributes of Asiya, the world of action. Now, if it says, i.e., a nefesh in the world of Asiya is born of the union of the above masculine and feminine midot. Masculine and feminine. The union being called the yichud, the zibug, the union, which Zibug Zun over here calls it Zoch and Akeva, male and female, which is an acronym for Zoh, for Zocho, for Zoh, Zeranpim. Zeranpim Menukva, Ameichin Shalom Bechinas Chayav and Neshamat Zeranpim Menukva, and of the union of the Meichin, Chabad, intellectual faculties, an acronym for the intellective soul faculties of Chachma, Bina, and Das, together consisting of constituting the Meichin of Zeranpin and Nukva, and in the world of Asiya. Again, Zeranpin is the emotive attributes. The feminine aspect of it is the Nukva, the Makabel, the recipient, which are the Chayo and Neshama of Zeranpin and Nukva. Foreshadowing the above mentioned union at the level of the lower emotive Sefirot, the union which first brings a nefesh to the stage of potential creation, is that which takes place at the level of the higher intellective Sefirot. The two partners to this union are the soul level called Chaya, representing the level of Chokhmah. We know that the neshama has 5 levels. That's why we light 5 candles. When someone passed away, say Kaddish for them, we light 5 candles, corresponding to the 5 levels of neshama, which is nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, yechid. Right? 5 levels. Nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, yechid. So he says the two partners to this union are the soul level called chaya, representing the level of chokhmah. Chaya means life, also means level of neshama, representing the level of chokhmah, wisdom, the masculine element, and the soul level called neshama, representing the level of binah, the feminine element. So when we say neshama is actually a name of a woman. It's feminine. You're not going to see a man called neshama. You might see a woman called neshama. It's feminine.
Nashi? Neshama.
No, Menashe comes from Menashe.
No, you can actually the word Menashe can also be neshama.
Neshama.
It's
Just
the same
change the letters.
But neshama is feminine. Now, neshama is the 3rd level. You have nefesh is the lowest. Meaning, if we start from the top, from Yechida is the highest one. Yechida is the highest one. Chaya, it tells you it's masculine. And neshama is the feminine. So we have to have a yichud, a union, between the masculine and the feminine, which means between the chaya and the neshama. The chaya would be the masculine, and the neshama would be the feminine. We're not speaking about yechida yet. Yechida is even chaya itself is godliness. It's complete godliness. The neshama itself, the nefesh is the part of the neshama that is actually permeates your body, as we said before. Ruach, it hovers over you. It's not even enclosing you. And we're dealing with much higher levels than ruach. And then you have neshama, which we just called, it stays above. We said that you can't even taint that neshama. No matter what you're going to do, you can taint the nefesh. You can somewhat affect the ruach, but your neshama are way too godly for it to be touched. Many times it says in Chassidut that the purpose of the neshama is not to you're coming down not for the neshama. Neshama was already close to God, one with Hashem. He didn't come down for the neshama itself. There's a mission to do in the world. The neshama itself does not need tikkun. Maybe the level of nefesh can use refinement, but the level of neshama itself is way above the body. It's already godliness. Over here we called it the feminine, that receives some chaya from the masculine. He writes, even a soul that is merely of the level called nefesh, which we said is the lowest one, comprises all the sfirot of the world of Asiya, Chochma, Bina, Zeir Anpin, the 6 emotive attributes, and Nukva, Malchus. Shein Achoraim, Hein, Shehein, Hein Achoraim, the Chelim, the Zeir Anpin, Nukva, Atzilus. These, in turn, are the external aspect of the Kelim. You have a kli, you have a vessel, you have the external aspect of it, you have the internal aspect of it. Over here speaks, Achoraim is referring to the external vessel. This in turn are the external aspect of the Kelim of Zeir Anpin and Nukva of Atzilus. Going to page 56. For the Kelim of Zeir Anpin and Nukva, the Kelim of Zeir Anpin and Nukva of Atzilus, which means the emotive attributes, and the Kelim, the recipient aspect, the Nukva of Atzilus, which is the highest world of emanation, illuminate and are infused within the spheres of the world of Asiya. The spheres of Asiya are thus the external aspect of the Kelim of Zeir Anpin and Nukva of Atzilus. Now, if you think about it this way, any level, I don't care how low it is, it has to come from somewhere. So ultimately, eventually, it's coming from Atzilus also. The lowest neshama has to be, in order for it to be a neshama, it has to come from a higher level. The question is how it's receiving, how is the communication being done? What type of relationship between Atzilus and Asiya? Is it between this neshama and its source in Atzilut, in the world of emanation? Is it outer or inner? Is it innermost, as the essence of a relationship, or it's a achoraim, as he calls it, the hinder part type of a relationship? So he writes, and they, the Kelim of Atzilus, are truly divine. For in them radiates the infinite Ein Sof light. Why is it truly divine, the world of emanation? Because he tells you what's in the world of Atzilus, infinite Ein Sof light. The infinite Ein Sof light is communicating with Atzilut, the world of emanation, which is vested and concealed in the Chochmah. How is it contained? What kli is holding the Ein Sof of Atzilut? The Ein Sof. What kli is holding the Ein Sof within the world of Atzilus? It's Chochmah, the highest level of. Within the world of Atzilut, the highest level is Chochmah, is wisdom. Like any world, like with you, what is the most precious thing that you have? Is your mind, is your intellect. Don't lose your mind. That's the most important, right? The mind is number one. Somebody, God forbid, has a stroke. It could be the strongest man in the world.
That's it.
You
can't put two and two together.
The mind is so what is the highest level that we have? Chochmah. The Chassidut teaches us that if you don't know how to bring the Chochmah into action, it's wasted, right? You're not utilizing the Chochmah. But Chochmah is the highest level. So within the world of Atzilut, or the world of Bria, or the world of Yetzirah, the highest level will be Chochmah. So what is the level that handles Ein Sof? We said it's the world of Atzilut that handles Ein Sof. But to be more specific, within the world of Atzilut, what handles the Ein Sof, the infinite light of God, is Chochmah. Chochmah is the one that takes it in. Is the first one to be the recipient of the Ein Sof. And then it's contracting it, condensing it, and progressing it, degrading it, so to speak, to bring it to lower levels that can handle it also. But Chochmah is the first level that takes it in. That's what it says, for in them radiates the infinite Ein Sof light, which is vested and concealed in the Chochmah of Atzilus. For reasons explained in the Alter Rebbe's note to chapter 35, indeed, the infinite light vested in Chochmah illuminates all the Kelim of the Sefirot of Atzilut, the supernal Father nest in Atzilut. It gives light to all the other vessels that are within the world of Atzilut. Now, the Iyu v'Gamur Echad Atzilut. What is so special about the world of emanation? So it says everything that exists in the world of Atzilut is one with Hashem. It's completely nullified. Usually you would say you have one level of nullification to the innermost, the content. The external has less For example,
There's no
you have
separation.
in Kabbalistic terminologies, you always have light and vessel.
Okay.
Right? You always have the light. The kli, light is the spiritual. The vessel is the container, is the limiting.
There's no
Right?
difference.
So when it comes to the world of Atzilut, the light and the vessel are one with godliness, which is in a way an oxymoron, because you say, well, the kli is containing it, it's limiting the light. The light is spiritual, comes a container and takes it in and limits it. It says, no, in the world of Atzilut, they are one with him. That's the meaning of Iu, him, the light itself, Vegarmuya, and his vessels are one. Since the Sefirot of Atzilut are the internal aspect of the Sefirot of Asiyah, the infinite Ein Sof light is vested within the Sefirot of Asiyah. It tells us, since Asiyah is ultimately come from Atzilut, and Atzilut is one with Hashem. So it really comes down all the way to Asiyah, to the world of action. Val Kain, therefore, Gam Nishmat Adam Meiro and Sof Baruch Hu Melubash V'Gonus Be'er Chochma Shebalachas Esodom. Hence, since the soul derives from these Sefirot, it follows that the infinite Ein Sof light radiates in the soul of man as well. So it comes to tell us that within us there is Ein Sof. The infinite light comes also within us. So what the Alter Rebbe says many times, that if people would be able to arouse compassion on the soul. What does it mean, compassion on the soul? It says, I have such diamond in me.
Why am I not telling you?
Why am I not using it? Why am I not embracing it? So, have rachamim. His soul is so holy, so lofty. It's part of the Ein Sof, as we see now. No matter how lowly the soul is, it's still connected to the Ein Sof. It's part of the Ein Sof. That's what we say, Chelek Elokah, part of Hashem. Chelek is a part of godliness. But, so hence, since the soul derives from the Sefirot, it follows that the infinite Ein Sof light radiates in the soul of man as well, vested and concealed in the light of its chokhmah in order to animate man. Remember the first question that we asked in this essay, in today's Tanya. He says, how can Eov come and tell us you can look at your flesh and see godliness? So what's the connection between my soul and Hashem? So now that we see what the Alter is teaching us, that the Ein Sof is actually vested in us, and we can look at our soul and figure out somewhat minuscule perception, as he calls it. We can get a glimpse of what godliness is. And sometimes that is enough to change who we are. And from the soul, from it, the soul, man is enabled to understand something of the supernal Sefirot. For they all radiate in his soul. In your neshama, they all radiate, which comprises them. Since the soul derives from the 10 Sefirot, the 10 manifestations, and hence comprises 10 corresponding faculties, which we said, Chokhmah, wisdom, all the way, the intellectual, the emotional, and sovereignty, and Malchus, man can arrive at an understanding of the supernal Sefirot through contemplating the dynamics within his soul, to figure out which part is chesed, which part is gevurah, kindness, severity, splendor, and so on. Now, because the takeaway from today's Tanya, because God has blown into you from his inner self, like when you blow the shofar, it's very difficult. Why? Because the air is coming from your intestines, from within. It's not just speaking, you can speak for a long time. Blowing the shofar, it's hard. Why? Because blowing, exhaling air, it's coming from your innermost. So it's when Hashem, and the Pasuk says, Vayipach be'apoy nishmas chaim, Hashem blew into his nostrils soul of life, meaning that he gave us his essence. Hashem invested his essence into us. Because God has blown into you. From his inner self, you parallel God in your makeup. That's what it says. B'tzelem Elokim also is Adam. With the image of God, Hashem created man. It says, you parallel God in your makeup. You can understand the divine structure by understanding yourself. Welcome to you.
Is that why we say in the morning, Modeh Ani, we're telling Hashem, you have faith in me, my soul. You're giving my soul back to me, that you're having faith in me.
My soul.
He's putting it back in the morning. Okay. Thank you, Rabbi.
Welcome to you.